It started as a joke, a little quirk in our otherwise perfectly normal family life. We were the Hendersons' mom, dad, my older sister Maya, and me, Leo. Every evening at 6 o'clock sharp, we'd gather in the dining room. The aroma of mom's cooking would fill the air, a comforting blend of spices and warmth that always made the old house feel like a home. Our dining table was a heavy, dark oak thing, a family heirloom surrounded by 5 matching chairs. 4 of us, 5 chairs. The 5th one, tucked neatly at the head of the table opposite Dad, was always empty. The first time it happened, none of us really noticed. Or if we did, we didn't mention it. After dinner, as we were clearing the plates, Mom paused. "That's odd," she said, nudging the empty chair with her foot. It was pulled back from the table, just an inch or two, as if someone had been sitting there and had just pushed back to stand up. Dad chuckled, probably just settled on the floorboards. He pushed it back in, the wooden leg scraping softly against the polished floor, and we thought nothing more of it. But the next night, it happened again. Same chair, same slight distance from the table. This time, Maya pointed it out. "Hey, the ghost is back," she teased, a smirk playing on her lips. I laughed, picturing a see-through person politely excusing themselves from our dinner of spaghetti and meatballs. The name stuck from then on. It was our ghost guest. Did our guest enjoy the lasagna? Dad would ask with a wink. Make sure to leave a seat for Casper, Mom would quip as we set the table. It was a silly, harmless family gag. The chair's slight displacement became a familiar part of our routine, a little mystery that added a touch of whimsy to our evenings. We'd find it pulled out, we'd push it back in. Day after day, for weeks it was the same. A tiny, predictable movement. It never moved more than a couple of inches. It was almost polite. We'd gotten so used to it that we stopped commenting on it. Pushing the chair back in was as routine as loading the dishwasher. The joke had run its course, and the ghost guest had become just another silent member of the family. The house was old, full of creaks and groans. We reasoned it away as settling foundations, uneven floors, a draft we couldn't find. We were a family of rational people after all. There was always a logical explanation. Then, things began to change. The shift was subtle at first. The chair started moving a little further back each night, not just an inch or two, but a good half foot. It was no longer a polite pushed back, it was a definite separation from the table. The sight of it sitting there, isolated, started to feel less whimsical and more intentional. The jokes stopped, and unspoken tension began to creep into our dinner times. We'd all glance at the chair, then at each other, a silent question in our eyes. Dad would push it back in with more force each night, the scraping sound louder, more grating. One evening we heard it. We were all in the living room watching a movie. A loud, drawn-out asterisk scroll up, asterisk echoed from the dining room. It was unmistakable. We all froze. Dad muted the TV. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with a new kind of fear. He walked slowly to the dining room, the rest of us trailing behind him like a line of ducklings. There it was. The empty chair was now almost a yard away from the table, sitting starkly in the middle of the walkway. It looked defiant. "Okay, this isn't funny anymore," Mom said, her voice tight. "Who's doing this?" She looked at Maya, then at me. We both shook our heads, our eyes wide. We were just as scared as she was. We weren't a family for pranks, not like this. Dad inspected the floor, checked for drafts, ran his hand along the chair's legs. He found nothing. No strings, no tilted floorboards, nothing. He pushed the chair back, the sound echoing in the silent house. That night, none of us slept well. Every creak of the old house sounded like a footstep. Every whisper of the wind sounded like a breath. The activity escalated. We started hearing noises during the day, a faint scraping from the dining room when we were all upstairs, a single, sharp rap on the table as if someone were knocking for attention. The atmosphere in the house grew colder, not just in temperature, but in feeling. The cozy warmth was gone, replaced by a constant, prickling sense of being watched. Dinner became a tense affair. We'd eat quickly, our eyes darting towards the empty chair, which now sat a little further away each evening, as if it were losing patience. One night, Maya swore she saw it move. We were halfway through dinner when her fork clattered onto her plate. "It moved," she whispered, her face pale. "I saw it. It just slid." We'd all been looking at our food. We stared at the chair. It was in its usual pullback position, but the image of it sliding on its own, silently, was terrifying. Dad tried to be the voice of reason. "Maya, it's just your imagination getting the better of you." But his voice lacked conviction. He was scared too. We all were. The fear was a living thing in the house now. Mom started talking about having the house blessed. Dad, ever the skeptic, was starting to consider it. I started avoiding the dining room altogether, eating my breakfast in the kitchen. Standing up, the room felt wrong. The empty chair dominated the space, a silent, brooding presence that promised something awful. It was no longer a guest. It was an intruder. Then came the last night. The night everything broke. A storm was raging outside, rain lashing against the windows and wind howling like a wounded animal. The power had flickered a few times, making us all jumpy. We were having dinner, a forced, silent meal. The tension was so thick you could taste it, more potent than Mum's beef stew. The empty chair sat a good 5 feet from the table, a sentinel in the shadows cast by the flickering lights. We were all trying to ignore it, trying to pretend this was a normal family dinner on a stormy night. And then it happened. Without any warning, a sound ripped through the dining room that was louder than the storm outside. It was a violent, screeching, splintering sound. We all screamed. The empty chair didn't just slide back, it was thrown. It flew backwards, as if kicked by an invisible powerful force, and crashed into the wall with a deafening bang. It hit with such violence that a chunk of plaster exploded from the wall and the chair's back leg snapped with a sharp crack. We were frozen in our seats, staring in pure terror. For a moment, there was only the sound of our own ragged breaths and the drumming of the rain. The chair lay on its side, broken, defeated, and in the dead silence of the room, a new sound began. It was a whisper, a low guttural sound that seemed to come from the very spot where the chair had been sitting. It was indistinct at first, a cold murmur on the air. Then, it grew clearer, coalescing into a single, horrifying word that seemed to echo in our very bones. Mine. The lights went out, plunged into absolute darkness, broken only by the occasional flash of lightning. The terror was absolute. Mom was sobbing, Maya was screaming my name. I felt Dad's hand grab my arm in the dark, pulling me close. The whisper was gone, but its presence lingered, a chilling promise in the blackness. We didn't wait. We stumbled over each other, blindly clawing our way out of the dining room, out of the house, and into the storm. We ran. We left everything behind: the warm stew, the family photos on the wall, the life we had built there. We never went back. Not for clothes, not for heirlooms, not for anything. The house was sold as is, the new owners presumably unaware of the dinner guest who had claimed a seat at the table. Sometimes I wonder about them. I wonder if they gather for dinner at that heavy oak table, and if they notice the one empty chair that always seems to be just a little out of place. We never talk about what happened. The memory is a wound that we don't dare to touch. But every night, when I sit down to eat, I can't help but glance at the empty chairs in the room, and I always make sure they're pushed in tightly. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you felt that chill run down your spine, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe, and always check your chairs.